hearing is being recorded in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access and also Facebook. I'll introduce you to the board. To my left is Lisa Normandin, the board secretary. I'm Alfred Gravel. This is James Bezikowski, David Blatt, and Tony Nicastro. The way the hearing, I will point out tonight, we have a quorum. We need 4 for a quorum. Usually we have 5 voting members. When we don't have 5, we have to have all 4 in favor. So I just want to point that out, that we can give you the opportunity, if you would like, that you can reschedule to a later date, but I can tell you there's nothing open for a month. So with that, I'll tell you the rest of the way it will do is Lisa will read the application and any other submitted communication. The applicant will have the opportunity for comments on the application or a submission of additional documents. You'll please come forward to the mic, give your name and address. Board members will have the opportunity to ask questions that they might have on the application while you're at the mic. There will be a public comment period. You will please come forward to the mic, give your name and address, and please address all comments and questions to the board. And this is a special permit, and a special permit for varying dimensional requirements. So there's additional requirements other than just the special permit part. The permit may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially degrading from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. The specific site is an appropriate location for such building or alteration. The proposed building or alteration is compatible with the existing neighborhood with regard to site, location, and architect. The granting of the special permit will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The granting of the special permit will not unreasonably diminish the available light, air, sunlight, and other amenities, and there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. The board may impose any conditions deemed necessary to achieve the purpose of this bylaw. With that, before I ask Lisa to read it, because are you okay with the 4?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so with that, I will ask Lisa to please read.
This is an application for a special permit, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, Zoning Board of Appeals. The name and address of the applicant is Daniel Proctor, 1529 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg. The undersigned hereby makes application as follows. For a special permit for a dimensional variance to vary the regulation of Section 250 4.9E6, natural vegetation, no more than 30% of existing natural vegetation on any lot may be disturbed in an underlying residential district, nor more than 50% of the existing natural vegetation on any lot may be disturbed in an underlying non-residential district. Proposed 90% disturbance. And they're seeking a special permit for a contractor yard per Section 250 4.1G. The proposed action has not begun. The basis for this application is found in the following section of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw, Section 250 4.1G and 8.3B2D. The street address is 1325 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg, assesses map 62, parcel 3. Name and address of each holder of legal title to the land which is the subject of this case is Daniel C. and Jean M. Proctor, 1529 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg. And the deed is recorded in Worcester Northern District Registry of Deeds, Book 9464, page 237, and recorded October 31st, 2019. If the undersigned has any knowledge of a prior appeal, application, or petition concerning the land or building involved in this case, describe the case and the dates involved. A stormwater permit and site plan approval from the Lunenburg Planning Board was issued on April 13th, 2020 for proposed earth removal on the property. This is signed August 26, 2022 by Daniel and Jean M. Proctor, 1529 Mass Ave, Lunenburg. Project narrative. Existing conditions. On behalf of the applicant, Daniel and Jean Proctor, Dillis and Roy respectfully submits this narrative to the Zoning Board of Appeals for supplemental information pertaining to the special permit application pursuant to Section 254.1G and Section 250-8.3B2D of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw. This narrative is being submitted to present the project to the board and provide evidence that granting of the requested special permits will not cause substantial detriment to the town or neighborhood. The proposed project is located at 1325 Massachusetts Avenue, which is identified as parcel 62, parcel 3 in the Lunenburg Assessors Database. The property is zoned commercial and contains approximately 5.9 acres of land with a single-family house on the property. The property is in a Zone 3 Water Supply Protection District and will have access to municipal sewer and water. Over the past 2.5 years, the owner and applicant has been removing material from this site as approved by the earth removal permit issued by the Lunenburg Select Board. In addition to the earth removal, the owner has installed a stormwater basin on the western portion of the property, which was shown on the approved earth removal site plan and designed to accommodate future development of the site. As-built stormwater basin and existing characteristics of the site are reflected on the attached site plan. On April 13th, 2020, the Lunenburg Planning Board voted to approve a stormwater permit and site plan application for the proposed earth removal on the property. Proposed conditions. The proposed project involves the construction of a 5,400 square foot building, a 5,000 square foot personal improvement building, and a fabricated 14,400 square foot Morton Building to function as a contractor yard. Each proposed building will have designated parking spaces along the proposed roadway and immediately adjacent to the building. As an addition to the Morton Building, the applicant is proposing to install a 720 square foot fenced-in paved area for outdoor storage. The proposed Morton Building will be separated via interior walls to provide several sections of usable interior space. The paved access driveway will be a minimum of 24 feet throughout the development and will provide an internal traffic flow that is cohesive between all three proposed buildings. As mentioned above, the applicant is proposing to connect to Lunenburg to municipal sewer and water. Appropriate utility connection locations are shown on the plan but will ultimately be coordinated with the Lunenburg Water and Sewer Departments. The applicant is seeking approval to construct the proposed buildings as shown in the attached plan. As such, 2 special permits are required from the ZBA. The permit for dimensional variation. Section 2.5, 4.9E, natural vegetation. No more than 30% of the existing natural vegetation on any lot may be disturbed in an underlying residential district. No more than 50% of the existing natural vegetation on any lot may be disturbed in an underlying non-residential district. Section 250.49 of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw defines the regulations relative to the water supply protection district. The applicant is requesting a special permit to vary dimensional requirements as the proposed project includes a disturbance of 90% of the existing natural vegetation in a non-residential district, 2.47 acres of proposed disturbance. Of the 2.47 acres of development area, approximately 0.8 acres will be impervious areas, roof area, or pavement. The remainder of the development area will be restored with loam and seed or landscaped. Special permit criteria. A, will the proposed action be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons? The reply, the proposed site has been used for earth removal for the past 2.5 years. The proposed site work will not be unlike the construction that has been taking place over the past few years, until the site is ultimately stabilized at the completion of the proposed project. As such, no danger or hazardous actions to the public health of Lunenburg is expected from the proposed action. B, will this action have a material adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood or on the amenities of the neighborhood? The reply, the proposed project provides several improvements to the commercial property, including the construction of an office building, personal improvement building, and associated parking areas. The remainder of the disturbed area will be restored with loam and seed or landscaped. The proposed improvements will increase the assessed value of the property and also the market value of the property. The commercial use of the property will provide amenities to the town of Lunenburg and will have a positive effect on land values in the neighborhood. Will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and sight lines if an open use? The proposed project, while disturbing the existing land, will ultimately lead to a final stabilization of the site, with a large portion of the site to be restored to loam, seed, and landscape areas. The construction of the proposed development will be sequenced such that areas will be restored as soon as the contractor completes construction. As such, large areas will not remain disturbed for extended periods of time. Designated stockpile areas will be proposed and erosion control barriers will be installed prior to construction to prevent migration of soils or sediment off-site. D, will the proposed action produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines in amounts clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property? The reply, as mentioned above, the contractor will sequence construction such that disturbed areas will be stabilized with loam and seed as early in the construction process as possible to avoid having large areas of exposed earth. A water truck will be present on site to be used during drought conditions and any time where the site is prone to producing significant amounts of dust. Construction will take place during normal working hours, and it is not expected that proposed action will be detrimental to the use of the adjacent properties. Section 258.3 of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw criteria. Section 250-8.3, relative to special permits for dimensional variation of the protective bylaw, stipulates 5 standards upon which the board must make findings. They are as follows, with a brief description of the proposed project's compliance with each. The specific site is an appropriate location for such building or alteration. The property is zoned commercial. The proposed commercial uses of the property will work cohesively on the site, which will provide several areas of green space and landscaping. The placement of the buildings and development area will provide stabilization and enhance the frontage of the property along the Route 2A right-of-way. The proposed building or alteration is compatible with the existing neighborhood with regard to size, location, and architecture. The proposed alteration will be compatible with the neighborhood as it will stabilize the existing frontage along 2A. The green space, grassed, and landscape areas will be aesthetically pleasing, and the buildings will have an architectural look that matches other structures in the area. The granting of a special permit will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The nature of the proposed project involves a stabilization of a site that has been used as an earth removal site for 2.5 years. The proposed buildings will not be unsightly, and the combination of restored green space and development area will provide a cohesive site that fits into the characteristics of the neighborhood. The granting of the special permit will not unreasonably diminish the available light, air, sunlight, and other amenities. The proposed disturbance area within the Zone 3 Water Supply Protection District is approximately 2.47 acres. Of the disturbed area, approximately 1.6 acres of the Zone 3 Water Supply Protection District will be restored as grass areas, restoring the land to a natural state. The remainder of the disturbance area will be restored with either buildings or pavement. The proposed use within Zone 3 radius will not diminish the available light, air, sunlight, or any other amenities in the neighborhood. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. The proposed alteration will utilize an existing curb cut location on Route 2A, with the exception of utility connections, which will be coordinated with the appropriate utility companies. No heavy construction or earthwork will take place within the Route 2A right-of-way. The existing curb cut provides adequate separation from the nearest road intersection, and the site distances comply with Mass DOT standards for the state highway. No hazard to vehicles or pedestrians is expected from the proposed alteration. This is for the special permit for the proposed contractor yard use, Section 254.1, permitted and prohibited uses. The use table provided in Section 254.1G of the zoning bylaw states that the use of contractor yard requires a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The office building and personal improvement building are both allowed uses in a commercial zoning district. The special permit criteria. Will the proposed action be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons? The proposed contractor yard, a prefabricated Morton Building, has been located in the rear of the building. The proposed building is over 100 feet away from the side and rear lot lines and over 320 feet away from the Route 2A right-of-way, providing a buffer from the surrounding properties. Given the nature of the proposed use, heavy traffic through the is not anticipated, or no any fire of danger or explosion on the property. Will this action have a material adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood or on the amenities of the neighborhood? The proposed building will increase the assessed value of the property and also the market value of the property. The contractor yard will provide a new amenity to the town of Lunenburg and will have a positive effect on land values in the neighborhood. Will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and sightlines if in open use? As mentioned above, the proposed building has been located as far as possible from the neighboring properties. The majority of the proposed use will take place inside the proposed building. The small fenced-in areas, 720 square feet, behind the building will be locked and are expected to be used as storage areas. Will the proposed action produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines in amounts clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property? As mentioned above, the majority of the proposed use will consist of the proposed enclosed building, which will limit noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare. An existing earthen berm, along with an elevational difference between the surrounding properties and the proposed buildings, will provide a visual and sound buffer for the proposed use, helping to mitigate any impacts to the adjacent property. Section 258.3, relative to special permits for dimensional variation of the protective bylaw, stipulates 5 standards upon which the board must make their findings. They are as follows, with a brief description of the proposed project's compliance with each. The specific site is an appropriate location for such building or alteration. The property is zoned commercial. The proposed site will be level with an internal traffic pattern that works cohesively with the building. The site is located relatively centrally in the town of Lunenburg and will be convenient for tradesmen to store applicable supplies or equipment. The proposed building or alteration is compatible with the existing neighborhood with regard to size, location, and architecture. The proposed commercial building will fit in the architectural character of a typical commercial development in Lunenburg. The Morton Building will be a neutral color, has been located to the lot to provide adequate separation between the proposed building and the existing lot lines. The granting of a special permit will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The proposed use is a contractor yard which will be primarily used for storage of container supplies and equipment. The proposed building includes only 10 separate bays, so heavy traffic is not expected from the proposed use. As mentioned above, the building will be a neutral color and will fit in with the architectural character of the neighborhood and other commercial buildings in the area. I promise I'm winding down. The granting of the special permit will not unreasonably diminish the available light, air, sunlight, or other amenities. The proposed use contains a single building with small fenced-in areas behind the building. The proposed project will involve landscaping that will restore large portions of the site with green space to accompany the building and pavement areas. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. The proposed project will utilize an existing curb cut on Route 2A. The proposed entrance provides adequate separation between the nearest street intersection and meets the minimum site distances for the road. No hazard to vehicles or pedestrians is expected from the proposed development. There is a letter to the Board of Appeals. The purpose of this letter is to provide written authorization to allow staff from Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group to represent the proposed project at 1325 Mass Ave, and that's signed by Dan and Jean Proctor. There is a list of abutters that were all notified by mail 2 weeks prior to the meeting. There is a copy of the deed recorded with the Worcester Northern District Registry of Deeds. There is a copy of the stormwater permit that was granted by the Planning Board, and a copy of the earth removal permit issued by the Board of Selectmen. And I received 3 letters, 2 by email and 1 delivered in person late today. This one is dated today from Mark Flagg Tree Service of 90 Cove Road. To the Lunenburg Zoning Board of Appeals, I'm a local business owner in addition to an abutter to Dan Proctor's project located on Mass Ave. I'm completely in support of this project. I feel there is a huge need for this type of business in our area, and I know many local small business contractors who will benefit from a location outside of their private residence to conduct their business. Thank you in advance, and I hope this finds all of you well. Mark Flagg. I received this via email. To whom it may concern, we're in favor of Dan and Jean Proctor utilizing their property on Mass Ave formerly owned by Rick Mason, for commercial business purposes, as the property has been zoned commercial. Sincerely, Steve and Ann Dion, proprietors of 1320 Mass Ave Properties. And I received this afternoon from Dale and Jerry Erskine, abutters at 1331 and 1335 Mass Ave. The building, the two buildings in the front of 1325, the personal improvement building with the parking lot and the proposed office building with parking lot, we do not object to these buildings or their use. We object to one building at the rear of the property, the contractor's storage yard, and fenced storage and parking lot. This is a heavy commercial use of the land abutting 3 residences. Our concerns: number 1, the operation and size of the building and fenced-in area. 2, proximity to the existing homes within sight and sound. 3, annoyance of lighting and noise of such operation. 4, hours of operation with contractors in and out. 5, loss of property enjoyment. 6, loss of real estate value with such operation within view. 7, loss of all the vegetation, certainly not good for the bordering wetlands. 8, length of time construction will take. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And with that, I'll invite the applicant or his representative to come up and speak to the issue.
Thank you very much. Greg Roy with Hills of Roy. I'm representing Dan and Jean Proctor this evening. I'm always reminded how many words we actually write. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a history, expound a little bit on what was read, although we did provide you with quite a bit of detail in the project narrative. About 3 years ago, the applicants approached our office with the intent on removing gravel from the property. So we embarked on a permit application process with the select board for the gravel removal permit, earth removal permit, as well as with the planning board, which was site plan approval and stormwater permit process. Those permits were ultimately granted. The gravel removal operation has been in progress since that time, and is nearing completion. Is not totally complete at the moment, but the applicants have now reached the point where they are looking to develop the property commercially. At each of the points in time 3 years ago, at all the board meetings that we went to, select board, planning board, multiple continued meetings, we stood here and said with no pulled punches that we are intending to build a commercial development on this property. We did that because we did not want any surprises when this night came. The applicants have been very candid with the fact that that the property is owned commercial. They purchased it with the idea of developing it commercially. So we were very upfront. The applicants wanted to be very upfront with the residents and the abutters, but also with the boards. I know we didn't come before your board during that process, but we have been upfront about the fact that this day was coming. So we are here tonight before you for 2 special permits. The site, they of course both relate to the site, but they are different. So you noticed in the reading we split the 2 special permits up in the project narrative to give you findings and information that was relative to each permit, relative to the findings of fact that your board needs to make, and that was done intentionally because they are different and unique special permits. That is to say, they don't necessarily relate to each other, so your board can act independently, as far as we're concerned, on both of those special permits. Although I do appreciate that you're holding the hearing concurrently, so we don't have to do a stacked meeting. So there's 2 special permits this evening. The first is to ask for a special permit to vary the dimensional requirements in the groundwater supply protection district. It's a little difficult to see here, and my laser pointer is out of batteries, but the front portion of the site, approximately half of the site towards Massachusetts Avenue, is located within Zone 3 of the town's groundwater supply protection district. In that district, in a non-residential zone, so we're of course a commercial zone, the quote, disturbance of natural vegetation is limited to 50%. And if you disturb less than 50% of quote natural vegetation, you can do that by right. In the case of this site, we are proposing to disturb a total of 90% of the vegetation in that zone on the property. So again, if you can kind of see, I have a red dashed line that splits through the middle of the property, and it's the part that we're talking about is on the right-hand side of that line, or closer to Massachusetts Avenue. What I wanted to point out a couple things relative to this that weren't necessarily said in the project narrative. The first is that when we sat down with the building commissioner to review this regulation, none of the terms in that definition are defined. So the term natural vegetation is not a defined term in your bylaw. So it's a little bit open to interpretation in terms of what you are going to consider natural vegetation. That portion of the site, particularly on the particularly on the easterly portion of the site, is developed as a single-family residence with a driveway. And you can see that on the bottom. I have an existing conditions plan on the bottom plan. You can see in pink are the locations of the existing house and shed outbuilding locations, as well as the location of the driveway, which is a loop driveway. Really everything within that area, within the horseshoe and the house footprint, I would argue is really not natural. It's been used for many decades as a single-family residential home. There's lawn that's in there. The driveway is of course improved, and of course the building. So, and then of course on the westerly side of the property, the detention basin, which was constructed as part of the gravel removal operation, has already been built, as well as the access to the site, which you can barely see, but it's in sort of a lighter gray hatch area coming in from the middle of the property. So there's really not a lot of the site that is natural vegetation anymore. I would submit to your board. So I wanted to point that out, that it's not it's a little bit difficult with these type of applications because we don't have the benefit of looking in the definition section of your bylaw to determine exactly what's meant by some of the terms in that section. As you can see in the upper plan, which is the proposed plan, the two uses that are proposed within that zone are an office building, professional office building, and a personal improvement building. Both of those uses are allowed by right in the bylaw, so we're not here to ask you for a use permit for those. But the resulting alteration for the construction of the buildings, parking lot, and the grading that would be required, as well as the grading that was already done within the detention basin on the westerly portion of the site, would result in an alteration of 90% of the site. But what I wanted to tell the board and to point out is that as we presented in our application, there's really only less than an acre of that which will be impervious, which will be sort of a true artificial surface. The rest of it will be restored with topsoil, loam, and seed, and returned really back to the same condition that the existing site exhibits. And of course, within the Aquifer Protection District, we're really concerned with groundwater recharge, groundwater quality, and the overall protection of the underlying aquifer, of which groundwater recharge is an important metric. So we really took, although we have to disturb and grade a lot of that portion of the site, we are returning most of it, more than 50% of it, back to a naturalized green, loamed and seeded permeable surface that will function in the same manner as it does today. It's primarily, before any work was done out there, it was all, of course, mostly grassland and pasture land, as well as the improved lawn areas that were around the house. The stormwater management system has actually already been designed in accordance with the Massachusetts Stormwater Management Policy. When we went through the site plan approval with the planning board, as well as with the earth removal permit process with the select board, we factored in impervious area, proposed impervious area into the design of that basin, anticipating that we would be coming back with a commercial development. So we've actually already designed that stormwater basin to meet the stormwater management standards, which is important because the interests of the stormwater management regulations, Massachusetts stormwater management regulations, are to protect groundwater, surface waters of the Commonwealth, to preserve recharge on the site and the like. So I just wanted to present that to your board as well for your consideration relative to that particular special permit that we're asking for. The other thing, before I go to the use permit, we did also, I think it was in the packet, although I don't think Lisa pointed it out, we did also provide you with a letter from Fran McNamara with the Water Department, who has reviewed the plan relative to its location in the water supply district and does not have, I'll just read, "It is my opinion that the proposed project will have no negative effects on the recharge for the wells and will not impact the wells in any way." That was his last sentence in his letter, but I think you have that in your packet. So the second special permit we're here this evening to ask for is a special permit for the contractor storage yard use. So of course, the contractor storage yard use is not allowed by right, it's allowed by special permit, which is why we're here. There is another very similar use classification code that is allowed by right, which is called, remember the exact name of that, Ryan?
Construction, sales, and service.
Well, there's construction, sales, and service, but there's also like artisan,
In the trade.
trade shop, trade shop, I think is the use that I'm thinking about. And really, the applicants are looking to construct this building with the partition spaces so that they can be leased to local small business owners. And what we're really looking at is people like painters that are currently working out of their house or their garage at home, and they just need a place to expand and have a place that's on a commercial piece of property that they can come and they can, they can have their basis of operation and then take off for the day from there. What I wanted to, I guess, mention early on in this discussion is we are not looking at a contractor yard like you might be envisioning it. We're not looking at a place where we're going to be yarding material, big piles of loam and processing loam and gravel. So we're not looking about it like an operation down that Powell's has down at the bottom where you see the big piles of sand and things like that. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at some uses after sitting down with the building commissioners. Some of the uses that some of the local businesses that may be tenants here could fit into the contractor yard. They may want to park a piece of equipment there at night after hours, and they may want to yard some pipe. They may want to yard some electrical supplies, which is why we've provided for the outdoor fenced-in areas so that those type of materials can be stored in a safe and secure manner. But we are not looking at someone coming in here and yarding loam and mulch and loading mulch and things like that. So I wanted to be very upfront and clear with the board about that. So we've done a few things relative to the layout of the site to try and alleviate some of the concerns that were raised in at least one of the abutter in the letter. The zoning setback for the property, I think, is 20 feet. The building is, proposed building is set back about 100 feet from the property, so we've increased the distance from the building by about a factor of 5. With the gravel operation, particularly in the back, we've actually already installed some berms and some buffers and some landscape buffers, which we intend to keep and not modify with the proposed project. So we're intending on the green space that's surrounding the residential portions of the property. We've kept that green space, and we've positioned the building in the center of the site so that we can try to get it as far away from the property as possible. A by right building here, which could be the same size as this, could be put 20 feet off the property line by your zoning bylaw. So, we're trying to be cognizant of how this commercial property fits in with the surrounding residential properties, and so we've made, some site layout decisions based on that. I think I'll end with that, but just to say that I also wanted to point out that sort of the permitting road ahead, just so that everybody in the room understands that this is not the last stop for this development. We will need another approval, site plan approval from the planning board and stormwater management permit, amended stormwater management permit, I believe, but that will be a public hearing process. We may need also, although most of the work that has already been permitted by the Conservation Commission and an order of conditions is in place on the property, some of the work may require a visit to the Conservation Commission as well. So I just wanted to be clear that, this is not the last public hearing process that will be in place for this particular development. I think that will do it for my opening remarks, and I'm certainly happy to take any questions from your board.
Okay, so you want to separate these permits, so you want to go for the vegetation first?
Well, you can do however you'd like, but we set it up that way because we really feel that they're separate and distinct. One doesn't rely on the other one.
Right,
In
correct.
our
That
opinion.
is correct. That's why we can't split them. What is your timeline on this? As far as, are you building the buildings up front first, contractors, what is the actual plan and the actual timeline?
Yeah.
Is this a
So the building that we propose.
year event, 2-year event?
Yeah. So I'm not sure of the actual duration. Maybe Danny can speak a little bit more to this, but we do intend to build the building in the back first. The two office professional buildings in the front would be behind that, and probably built when a tenant or someone that is looking to purchase those outright, however that ends up happening, is identified. But the building in the back, the applicant is looking to build that soon. I would say, you look in the spring. You want to talk to that, Dan?
Yeah. Good evening, Dan Proctor, 1529 Mass Ave. So yes, we would start construction springtime, still have a lot of clearing to do, move some material. Really the biggest obstacle as far as building right now is Unitil. We made an application with them to get power to the site, and they are literally like 52 weeks out to get a transformer. So that would give us time to get everything in place, and now we're talking, October of 2023 to have power, finish everything, that type of thing. So, and that's why we want to start from the back of the property and work our way towards Mass Ave at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that, I think if I saw that right, each space is, 60 by 24 in 10 of them?
That's correct. And that is like the most that we could do, okay? In other words, I have a gentleman who's a landscaper, and he said to me, he's like, I might be interested in 2 units. So if he purchased 2 units, or at least 2 units, then we wouldn't have that dividing wall in the middle. So he would end up with 48 feet by 60 feet. So the dividing walls would be like the most, so there could be 10 units, but it could be as few as 5, if 5 different companies bought 2 units, that type of thing, or leased, or however it's, financially agreed upon.
Okay. What are you going to have for safeguards for the people that are going to get, go in there as far as what they're actually doing in that space?
Yeah, so I mean,
mentioned
basically,
the
it's obviously
painter.
going to be full building code. There's going to be a sprinkler system in there. We're going to run an 8-inch water line in. We'll be on the westerly side of the property. There'll be a fire hydrant at the building, halfway through the building, be fully sprinkled. There'll be bathroom facilities in each unit. Obviously, each unit, the individuals will have their own lock and key. Like Greg said, the fence in the back would be a fenced-in area. But we really don't want to have a fence out by the road or anywhere there to allow them to come in. I want to keep it clean, easier for snow removal, plowing, all that type of thing. But the building will be locked and everybody will have their own key, obviously. Right in the middle of the building on the easterly side, that unit will be actually a smaller unit because that's where all the mechanics will come in. The electrical service, the gas service, sewer and water, that'll all come into that unit, which will have all the, the panels and the heating systems will all be individual. That'll be done by natural gas, that type of thing.
Okay, so they're going to have their own key, which means they can come and go as they please, anytime, any hour of the day?
That's correct.
So there will really be no set hours they can use that?
That's correct. I mean, one of the gentlemen who wants to, have a unit, he does snow plowing. So obviously, if he gets called out at midnight because the roads need to be plowed, then, he'd be in there to get his plow and take off, that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And again, how would you police what's going on in each unit? In the sense of, you mentioned a painter. Say a painter's in there, but he decides he's going to do spray painting and do something that really isn't, or chemicals that are, could be considered hazardous. How would you police that?
Well, we'll have to have some literature in all the leasing agreements, is really what it comes down to. We're still negotiating with the sewer department as far as, grease water separators in the units because they will have to have floor drains. So that'll be something that can be policed based on what comes out of that unit. But again, that's where there'll have to be certain literature and/or safeguards that would require, signatures from all parties, that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I know Greg mentioned it, but one of the big things, this goes way back, like 4 years ago, when we talked to the planning board about, a contractor yard or a trade shop, that type of thing. He mentioned painters. Again, I have a couple plumbers that have showed interest, okay? One plumber laughed, but he said, my wife's gonna kill me because I use up half the garage space in our house. So, and he's got all his plumbing supplies. So he just buys plumbing supplies, he comes in, gets his supplies out of his garage, goes to his jobs, that type of thing. So if he could have a storage place where he could have, boxed items, palletized items, that type of thing, that would be in his interest, certainly. And again, I know Greg mentioned it. We're not opening up a yard where we're going to be selling bulk products and loading cars and all that type of stuff. That's not what we're going to do at this site.
Okay. Two things. Number one, I know we had a second hearing scheduled at 7:30. Is that applicant here?
I'm here to represent the applicant.
Oh, yeah, the rep. I should. I did read.
Not seen twice.
Okay, well, I don't have to ask if,
Unless anybody's in the audience.
yeah. Is anyone in the audience for that hearing?
For the second one.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to let this continue till we finish with this one, then we'll go right into that. Since you're representing both.
Sounds good.
Okay. And with that, I'll open it up to the board, to the questions that they may have.
First question, it hasn't been addressed, but you obviously plan on tearing down the house and the shed that are presently on the property. I saw nothing in here that says anything about that. Is that planned on in the very near future, or what?
So we basically have a demo permit application pending right now with the building inspector. So we're just waiting for his approval on that. The age of the house kicked it into the demo delay category because it was built in 1918, I believe. So that's where that is at this point.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have something, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
right ahead.
So my biggest concern is light and noise pollution to the surrounding people. As you stated, if a guy who has a snowplow comes in and wants to pick up his snowplow and he finds it's damaged, it doesn't work, it won't hook up to his truck, there's a possibility, well, he'll be hammering and working on his trucks in that area, trying to get his snowplow, which, you know, causes an inconvenience to the neighbors.
Thank you.
That's a big concern of mine, light and noise pollution to the neighbors. How, what do you plan on?
Well, again, I mean, we're gonna have to have some policing on board and make sure that my tenants understand that. That gentleman that you're talking about with a snowplow that could have problems, right now, he lives in a residential area in the town of Lunenburg, and he has 4 plows. So there's a street that he lives on that those people aren't real happy that he fires them up at midnight either. So that's why we're trying to go into a commercial area, just because if it's zone commercial, doesn't it make more sense to have commercial operations? Again, I understand what you're saying as far as lighting and that type of thing, but I just feel like nowadays, it's probably a little bit less, of something that would happen, okay?
Oh, you know, backup alarms, flashing lights, stuff like that, and, you know, 9 and 10 o'clock at night, it's kind of annoying to.
Yep, no,
the
I
people
understand.
who live
I mean,
around
one
there.
thing, I'm not sure if Greg mentioned it or not, but, so this building is literally gonna be 15 feet below grade, so all that sound is actually gonna be buffered by those slopes in the back, hence the, 100 feet away from the houses.
No further questions.
Thank you. Actually, I was going to ask you how you were going to mitigate all the sound going out. So you're saying it's going to be
Right, so.
15
so-
feet below
so-
the grade to that?
Right,
Is
so
there
right now,
anything else
Greg-
you can do to either buffer zone off the neighbors that are the closest to this area?
Yeah, we certainly can do some landscape mounds. We've already done one. We could do more. But again, he's showing a slab elevation at 412. The top of the hill is 426. So the garage doors are gonna be 13 and a half feet below
Oh,
the top of that hill.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's gonna be a good enough buffer personally, just because, that's quite a bit.
Yeah. And as far as like lighting, nowadays you can have lighting that simply goes down, so we would condition the lighting.
That's correct. So those standard pack lightings that all the electricians use, wall packs.
Dark sky.
Yep.
And the vegetation, of course, we addressed that. You're going to reseed and replant.
Yep.
And pretty much now all the natural vegetation is gone anyway from the earth removal.
That's correct.
And so the vegetation is mainly in the drainage area. That's there now.
That's correct. I mean, ultimately,
Would
we
be
have to clean,
untouched.
when we get to the tail end, that always has to be cleaned out one more time, to gather any of the silt that's, occurred for the last year. So that gets cleaned one more time, and then it just gets top dressed at that point.
Okay. And you mentioned that you may have to go back to the conservation. There is wetlands on the property.
Yeah, we may, if we're proposing new work that wasn't shown on their plan within the buffer zone. But all of the, if you can visualize it, the wetland is right along the front portion and along the property line on the westerly side of the site. And we've already done all the disturbance that we're going to do with building the detention basin, which really spans the entire length of the property, from north to south along that property line. So there's really no further, no new encroachments within the buffer zone or the 30-foot no-touch zone that are proposed. But be that as it may, I actually, before I do that, let me just go over and check, 1 second. I actually think that the buffer zone is completely within, the limit of the buffer zone is completely within the detention basin. So I don't think there's any work that's going to be, new work that's going to be proposed inside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. That's all been done and previously permitted.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sure, a couple questions. How, with earth removal, how close are you to grade right now?
So basically, everything's been cut to it's a 410 contour line,
Right.
is what we were shooting for, to give us 2 feet to have, processed gravel, finished product, that type of thing. at the last renewal in August with the selectmen, I told them I had roughly 3,500 yards of material coming out to finish the original earth removal, and we've taken about 1,000 of that now, so we're literally down to like 2,500 yards or so to remove.
Okay, so as it sits today is pretty close to what?
That's correct. And basically, they told me at that point, once we get to that, then they need to close out the earth removal, application permit, get sign off from them, and then move forward with phase 2.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit more about the Morton Building.
Yep.
Just height, what does it look like?
Yep, so basically, the Morton Building is 27 feet high, okay? The garage doors will be 14-foot high garage doors, so they can handle any vehicle. 12-foot wide. And it's basically, what's gonna happen is on the end units, there'll be a side door on each end unit. Other than that, they'll all just be garage doors across the front, meaning the westerly side. In the back, there'll be a man door, for each unit.
Okay.
And then there'll also be a 8x8 garage door for our mechanical room, so we can bring in furnace and all that.
All right.
Morton Building, typical steel building. I don't know if you're familiar with my building over in Whalum. That building over there is 48 by 60. So ultimately, this would be like 5 of those in a row. The only difference is the roof line would be different. We are gonna have snow load, stuff on it to, so that the snow doesn't fall on cars that are gonna be parking in the front, that type of thing.
Okay. So how much room, just for laymen, since I'm, folks who can't see the little north arrow there, so we're saying that whether you have the proposed parking spots to the bottom of the building, that's the side the doors are on?
That's correct. So these are all the garage doors on this side.
Gotcha,
This is the north side.
gotcha.
East, west, so people would drive in, all the garage doors are on this side here.
Okay, all right. And the other question is regarding the fenced-in storage.
Yep.
I know we didn't address that just yet in the discussion, but just talk a little bit about what the proposal is with that fenced-in storage.
Yep, so basically the fenced-in storage would be 6-foot high chain link. It would be the same width as each unit, so it would be 24 feet wide, 30 foot back. So you lease unit number 1, you have the unit, and then you have that 24 by 30 behind it to put your, products or whatever you want to have. So each unit will have that 24 by 30.
Okay, for the neighbors, and just looking at that, would you be willing to do something more of a taller fence, and possibly making sure that the fence was not like a see-through chain link, but something that so they couldn't see what's in those fenced-in storage units?
Yeah,
and then my
so
other proposal would be to try to put, have those with a roof on, some kind of roof on top, so that, anything that's in there, whether it was like, if somebody as we talked about, they want to store mulch per se, that there's no chance of it blowing or being moved into another area or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a problem with the roofed in, but then now we're kind of kicking that back into what I know a lot of the concerns are, is that this is going to be a bark mulch loading facility, which, could be that issue. So I don't have a problem with privacy fencing. That's fairly easy to just do privacy slats, at least on the easterly side, and I wouldn't want the front to really be privacy.
No, I understand that.
But I mean, we certainly, on the north and the easterly side, could have privacy slats.
Right, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at,
Yeah, no, I
close
understand.
neighbors and just
Yep.
not being able to see.
Yeah,
right?
no, I get it. Yep.
Okay, and is there any proposed vegetation at the top of the berm, like on the property lines, just to kind of maybe help with the sound mitigation as well as sight lines, type of thing?
So I know the Erskines over here have some concerns, because obviously they're the abutter on that side.
Right.
So we planted some white pines during the summer. I was literally doing,
How they look. They look, they're all dead.
Please don't. You'll have your chance, you can't go back, have a back and forth. Everything has to come to the board.
so I literally was doing a job down on Reservoir Road where we had a whole bunch of white pines coming off the job site. We tried to plant them.
Okay.
They did not grow. There's a few of them that made it. When they say none of them made it, I would disagree with that. But the bottom line is, they were the ones who wanted the white pines.
Yep.
That was their preference when we had development plan review with the planning board. I rather would do arborvitae's or something like that. But again, if they want the white pines, we'll try to plant white pines again. I'm not opposed to doing some type of vegetation up there as a buffer, but that's the story with that.
Okay. I know it's not under the thing, but what is a personal improvement building?
A gym. Rock mountain, rock
okay.
wall, physical fitness,
I just
planet
wasn't-
fitness, that type of thing.
Okay, it just was.
Basketball
It was a new
hoops.
term for me, so that's why I figured I'd
Basketball
ask.
hoops,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question. So you're gonna lease these spaces to contractors. Is there any limitations what they store in there? Right? So my question is, so because a guy wants to store a vehicle in there, right? And all of a sudden his vehicle don't start. And then next thing you know, it's 9 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, he's out there repairing a vehicle and making noise. Are there gonna be limitations of what can be stored and what can be done in there? Again, my concern is the neighbors, the noise, and the light pollution going on for them.
Well, we certainly can do some type of hours of operation. Like if we said, okay, 9 o'clock, it has to stop, that type of thing. I guess my biggest thing with tradesmen is if they can work on a job site till 7 o'clock at night, or actually, I think the town of Lunenburg is 10, is that correct? You might know that one, Lisa. But whatever they can work on sites, then they're gonna be coming back here at the end of the day after their workday. But we certainly can restrict hours of operation. I certainly would want to have that open for, 7 days a week, that type of thing. Just because, contractors, we all work different days of the week and what have you.
And to Mr. DeCosta's point then, the idea would be putting a condition that none of these could be used for like a repair shop or mechanic use or things.
Well, that's in the regulations. Greg will probably answer that one.
So good question. A good point. Those are completely separate use categories in your zoning use table.
Right.
And so those, we're not asking for auto repair, auto sales and service, anything like that. So those would not be uses that are on the table.
I understand the regulations, right? But people are people.
I understand you.
People are people. If I can store a truck in there and it doesn't start, and then, again, with no one to police these actions, it's kind of intrusive to the neighbors.
Will there be a second access or egress to the property right now? I think there's, two for the house that's existing, and then there's another curb cut for the property that you've been removing the soil and that from. Will there only be that one that you presently have, or will there be another emergency exit somewhere on the property?
We are proposing just the one entrance and exit, which is shown there, which is where the existing access to the earth removal operation is. Mass DOT actually prefers that we consolidate curb cuts. This is a Mass DOT jurisdictional road, so any access needs to be granted an access or curb cut permit from Mass DOT, which we did receive for the gravel pit access. But we are proposing to consolidate those. We're not proposing an emergency access at this point. I don't think that the intensity of the development would really warrant that. That'll probably would be will likely be a topic of the planning board process, site plan approval process. But I haven't heard any concerns with it yet. I don't know was this application, Lisa, sent out to any, did the fire department get a copy of it? And the police department?
I do not think so.
Okay. So, the answer to your question is no. We're not proposing any second access for either permanent or emergency access.
Yeah, for the safety of the people involved in the, 10 buildings and so forth in the back. For the fire and the police, I would like consideration for at least maybe a chained piece of access or egress for an emergency only type of thing for consideration. in the future, and maybe check with the police and the fire on that for your own protection too.
Certainly if it's something that the public safety wanted, you know,
Yeah.
they kind of trump.
The last question that I have is relative to signage. Will each of these potential 10 require individual signage in addition to what your property has?
So basically, we haven't got to that point yet, you know, with the building department, but each building will be allowed to have signage. I'm quite certain it's fairly small. In other words, it could say, you know, Peach Plumbing, it could say, you know, Xeris Painting, you know, that type of stuff. There would not be a big sign down at the street that would have all 10 units
There
signed.
would not be.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I have a few more questions now. Yep, you have parking, these people, if they've got equipment that they're gonna be, take a truck, whatever, they're gonna come in their cars. I see you have parking for them around that building. Is there gonna be anything that limits outside storage in the parking areas where they leave equipment, or something's broken and they park it there, so that it would be considered a cast-off or junk, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We do not want the site to look like a junkyard. And I think maybe we didn't make it super clear, but one of the reasons why we're proposing the fenced-in storage areas is to formalize on-site where outdoor storage of equipment and pipe, or, you know, those kind of, the nature of that can go. And then it doesn't just randomly get placed in a, you know, diagonal in the corner of the parking lot for, you know, by just anybody. That we're really trying to formalize those places so that it can be spelled out in a lease, what can and cannot be in there. Obviously, there's regulations to what, you know, the town and the fire department's going to have a say in what can and can't be stored in those units, which will put in a lease, as Danny mentioned. But the idea is to not have a site that turns into a junkyard or something like that.
Okay. The other question, if somebody had a piece of equipment and it did need repairs, they were talking about somebody doing repairs outside at whatever time. I think that maybe you could consider as part of it that if anybody has to do repairs, they have to do it inside their garage unit, and there will be no outside repairs. And if they have to do it outside, it has to go off-site.
Yep.
Okay.
No, certainly, and like Greg just said, prime example is, there's one of these facilities down in here, and my wife and I have visited it numerous times, Saturdays, Sundays, go for rides, whatever. It's extremely clean, okay? The garage door is up, and you'll see the plumber in there, and he's organizing his van, and he's, you know, getting his stock for Monday morning and that type of stuff. That's exactly the type of facility we want. So all those type of things, you know, can be written in lease agreements and what have you. You know, we live a half a mile down the road. I drive by that site 100 times a week. So the last thing I want to do is drive by and see something that's not looking good. So that's exactly the type of thing that we would have in lease agreements.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
Sure. So we have talked about it, contractors getting materials, things of that sort. Is the idea of a large truck or like a semi-trailer being able to come, remove, you know, to deliver materials? Is there, I can't really tell from just looking at it because I'm not a traffic expert, is there room for like a semi-trailer to pull out, and things of that sort?
There is, with all the turn radiuses that we have around the building, which goes to what Greg was saying with fire protection, what Mr. Vezikowski was asking, there's room enough for fire trucks to get around that building.
Okay, I'm looking at it as like a semi-trailer or something like that.
No, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. Some of the fire trucks we have are pretty good size too.
Understand. What a small town, come on. Wait. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Just one more question.
Yeah, please.
So, as you said, contractors are gonna store the supplies there. So there's a possibility that Bill's Plumbing and Heating is gonna have all his guys come down there and meet at that area and go out? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's the intent.
That's the
So he's doing that rather than driving to his house on Leominster Road and parking 5 cars on Leominster Road so that his workers can all get in and go to their van and go to the job site. So again, when we had conversations with the planning board, they were in favor of it because we're trying to get some of that type of activity out of residential areas and have it in a centralized commercial area. That's why there's parking spaces for each unit.
But that's, you know, that's kind of limiting it to 2 per unit.
That's correct. So basically, again, in the lease agreement, you're gonna lease one of the units, and you're only gonna be allowed so many parking places per unit. So in other words, he can't employ 20 people and take up 20 parking places if his lease agreement only gives him 5.
Okay,
I know the parking regulations are on the top of the plan.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else to present?
There's a total of 78 parking spaces proposed.
Right, but some of those are for the other buildings.
Oh, right, true.
Right,
Yeah.
so I'm just looking at the tenants here,
Yeah.
right? The
No,
main
good-
concern we're
good-
thinking about is
good
the
point.
tenants here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, anything else you'd like to present? Anything else from the board? Okay, with that, I'll open it up to the public. Please, you come forward to the mic, give your name and address, all questions and concerns to the board, please.
My name is Clifford Smith, 70 Townsend Harbor Road, here in Lunenburg. I just want to go back and quote, I have a friend who has 4 plows, and his neighbors are raising hell with them because of the trucks, the noise, and the traffic. And what do we want to do? We want to bring that to my neighborhood. It's no good there, but it's going to be okay over here. How does that work? I don't get that. And yet, we were told 3.5 years ago, right here in this building, that there were no plans for the future, that we don't know what's going to take place. And now we're hearing, we knew long ago that they did make that statement, and that statement was never delivered here in this room. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to speak? Go ahead, they'll go first.
Mike Rash, 74 Townsend Harbor Road. I'm just have concerns about the building. I question how it fits into the architect of the neighborhood. I respect the fact that it's a commercial property, but I feel like the building in the back is more of an industrial size. You guys touched on a lot of topics that were concerns of mine. And I just don't think it fits, don't think it belongs. The traffic, it's drawing a bunch of contractors to a single point. All those contractors, or 90% of them, are going to be going by the primary school or the high school during school hours, rush hour. Big concern of mine, and just the noise, light, all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Lady back here.
Hi, I'm Pam Ansaldi, 70 Townsend Harbor Road. The first thing I'd like to say is that I don't want to repeat what's already been said. When initially this earth removal project was proposed and accepted, one of the things that we were promised is when it was done, it was going to be a beautiful rolling hill. That has not happened. Tonight, Lisa, when you read, the specs of this project, one of the things that came to my mind was I felt it was very presumptuous to assume that as the neighbors in the neighborhood, even though this is a commercial property area, that it wasn't going to affect our everyday lives, our sleep patterns, noise, dust. You all know what a horrible summer we had. We had no rain at all. That water truck was not on that property the entire summer, the whole summer. So when I hear about what's being proposed for this site now, forgive me if I lack the faith that it will be delivered as it's being said tonight. I have no problem with those 2 buildings on the front. In fact, I think it's perfectly fine for the neighborhood. I look around at some of the other commercial properties, they're small scale. That Morton Building and that outside field scares me. I think it's too big, it's too long, and frankly, I think 100 feet from my driveway is too close. I'm also really concerned about lighting, because most people who have businesses want it lit well at night, which I can certainly understand. How tall are those lights? Are they going to be flashing in the homes, in the residents that are all around the property? I don't know. I really resent reading this tonight about that this isn't going to affect our property values. This is going to decrease our property values. I don't need to tell you what I paid for my home, but I have a beautiful home and a nice property. Who's going to want to buy it, even if I chose to move? I don't think it's good for the neighborhood. And I think if any of you were in our situation of having this in your neighborhood, you might feel the same way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak?
Jean Proctor, 1529 Mass Ave. When we approached the boards for an earth removal, we did not have a plan 3.5 years ago. We never said it was going to be rolling hills. We said it's a commercial property. At some point, we're going to develop it commercially, because that's when we purchased the property. It's a commercial piece of property. We cannot build houses there. It's not zoned properly for that. So we did not know, and honestly, we did not know 3.5 years ago what we planned to do for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll cut off public discussion, bring it back to the board. Any discussion?
I do understand the butters' concerns and some of the concerns of the board members. I'm wondering if we could have a condition that there's, making sure that there's no, that they're not kind of conducting a business as in having customers coming to their site there, that it's used specifically for a yard for the storage that they're proposing. And the second would be somehow limiting the number of vehicles, so that saying like any vehicles need to be in the Morton building and not, can't be in the fenced yard, things of that sort, to try to limit the amount of possible noise or light pollution or things of that sort.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to set conditions on hours myself.
Okay. I think, I don't know how anybody's going to vote yet. There's
Right.
no motion on the table. But I'm going to just say that if it were, there absolutely have to be a number of conditions. Conditions on lighting, conditions on nothing in, other than like no junk, as we had talked about in the parking. Lighting would have to be non-intrusive to any of the residential. They have lighting today that shines down, does not travel, can't be intrusive. So there are a number of conditions that we would have to impose. So with that, any other discussion?
So I'm trying to understand that, as far as condition, understanding the conditions we can impose, and which conditions would be something that would rely on the planning board or any other board.
Oh, no, you don't have to rely on the planning board.
Okay.
Okay, they have to go back to the planning board.
Right, I understand
For
that.
a site plan review.
Yep.
They have to do that. That's
Right.
part of this. They will be in front of them. Planning board may make more conditions. I don't know what they'll think, and they'll go over. But our conditions, we want to make whatever conditions that we feel will mitigate the neighbors' concerns. So if we decide that we want a buffer zone between that construction, and the neighbor that just spoke, that's 100 feet, their driveway's 100 feet, we can say we want a buffer zone. You can say, you know, we want, the light cannot be, like I say, we can put a condition on lighting. We can put a condition on, you know, not working outside, that if they're gonna repair a truck, they either do it in the bay or they take it off-site to have it repaired. We can put those kind of conditions, hours of work, I don't know exactly how that would work with, you know, different people coming back, but I'll take your suggestion, whatever you would like to see, and we can go from there. But I think now what I'll do is I'll take a motion, because we're kind of just not going anywhere yet until we do.
Okay. Do you need the motion with the conditions?
Huh?
Do you need motions with the
I
conditions?
would be, yeah, but, you know, we can list the conditions. You don't have to have them all in your head at the end when you make that.
I appreciate that. Okay. So, I'll make a motion approve, based on the addition of vegetation on, the property lines to the, north and to the east, that will be, that would help with sound buffer, that the, fenced-in yard would be more of an 8-foot, I would propose an 8-foot fence in yard that would be, not be able to see through, that each,
Privacy fencing.
that privacy fencing, that, the bay, that there be no, vehicle repairs outside, no equipment repair outside, that all repair needs to be done inside the bay. And I was gonna say on the hours, I was gonna give it like, nothing between the hours of 11 and 4, type of thing. So thinking that even if somebody's doing snow removal, they're gonna know by 11 o'clock whether they're going out, and, type of thing. And, you know, how many people need them before 4 in the morning,
Okay.
type of thing.
Are you separating the two permits out, or are you combining them as one?
That's what I was gonna ask. It seems like
I
those
think-
conditions are relative to the use permit.
We need to do them separately.
So it sounded like you were talking about the use.
I'm talking more the use permit.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make
Right,
sure that
correct.
we're splitting those
No.
up.
So we can address the first one on the vegetation.
Okay.
Like, maybe somebody wants to make a motion on that. And that one involved the water supply district, but as they read, they have a letter from them saying that it's not an issue.
So
But-
can I ask at this point, I didn't go to the back of the site, so I don't know, but if I looked at it, I know we're talking about before the red line, are we talking just about before the red line when we're talking about the vegetation?
I think we're talking about the vegetation on the entire site, correct?
Before the red line?
Oh, before, yeah, correct.
Okay, all right. And how much of that has just been disturbed with the earth removal?
Just about 50%.
So 50% is already disturbed?
Yeah. Then basically, the parts on the west side were disturbed, where the detention basin was built and the access.
Gotcha.
We didn't do anything with the house property.
Understand,
Yeah.
understand.
And you're going to actually seed and plant another, how much?
So if that plan right there, inside the polygon
Yes,
is 2.4, nominally 2.5 acres, 2.47, I think. The impervious area, the pervious areas, pavement and building, is 0.8. So there will be 2.5 minus 0.8, 1.7 acres of seeded, permeable
Permanent, right.
green space
Okay.
in that polygon.
and the soil removal permit, I'm not as familiar with that, I didn't get a chance to really review that. Are you required to do vegetation because of that permit at all?
I don't have that. Dan just renewed it, so he probably can tell you.
So you might as well just grant the C.
Yes, I mean, obviously, the basin was all vegetated, but
Basin,
yes, the slope, we started the slope, we vegetated that. We also used wood chips because in the order it said wood chips could be used in lieu of, lumen seed, that type of thing, depending on conditionals and what have you. So ultimately, there's still loom on site so that we can spread that and seed that
Okay.
when we're done with the earth removal.
Gotcha. And that's mainly due, the reason for the 90% is mainly due to the idea of the two proposed buildings in the front.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
And your earth removal permit expires,
So it's good till next August, but when I had the renewal in August, they said, how much material do you have left? And I said, about 3,500 yards. So I'm gonna be done with that just because I'm gonna be done with it.
And then that's the end of
And then they
that.
want us to close it out.
period.
That's
Right.
correct. Yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Any more question? Okay, with that, I'll take a motion on the,
I'll make a motion that we grant the special permit for the vegetation portion.
dimensional variation.
Yes.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor? James?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. So that is passed. So now we will move on. We'll move on to the construction.
Contractor, yard use.
Yeah.
So I had made a motion that we approve based on the conditions of the vegetation on the north and, well, the sound barrier on the north and east side, the privacy fencing, a taller fence, but a privacy fencing.
Yeah.
And the no equipment repair external to the building, and that includes no equipment repair in the fenced-in areas, and as well as hours of 11 to, nothing to be conducted between the hours of 11 and 4. Oh, and not to be used by customers as a customer site, per se. I don't know how I say that, but, to entertain clients at the site. Not entertain, but, what are my terms? Somebody help
What
me
does
with
he
the
want
term
to
there.
say here? No.
For employees
No, no.
only?
For employee-
Retail or residential?
Right, yeah, for employees only.
Yeah.
Also, I would,
As we go here, you're free to speak.
Yep, no, I don't have a problem with any of those conditions, the 8-foot privacy on the north and west, vegetation, lighting. Like I said, the lighting nowadays is all down anyhow, that'll
Right.
all be addressed with planning board.
Right, so-
Hours of operation, I'm fine with that. No repairs outside, again, that's not what we want at that site anyhow, so I'm
I
fine with
would, I would add no hazardous materials
Yep.
stored or used.
Yep,
I think that's part of our standard conditions.
That's,
Yes, it
yeah.
is.
that's-
I would like to add that nothing goes on Sundays there.
For plowing, you
don't
can't do
know.
that.
Well, not for plowing, but as far as the contractors, in and out, picking up stuff.
Yeah, but what if I'm gonna be
That's-
leaving Monday morning? Sunday's my day to change my truck out from one job to the next.
Yeah, that would be difficult, I think.
yeah, I mean, sadly, we live in a world where contractors work on Sunday, we go to Mackey's on Sunday, we go to Aubuchon's on Sunday, we go to the nurseries on Sunday. That's, again, I'm not sure we're really understanding what this building is all about. In other words, there's not gonna be a lot of traffic with people going in there and buying products on Sunday, but I just feel like if a contractor wants to go in, guys are gonna have their offices in there, they might wanna just go and play on the computer on a Sunday morning. That's the best time to be, productive. I think the Sundays is something we really need for contractors.
Can I just ask a question, Mr. Chair? Can I just ask a question of the abutters regarding the fenced-in area?
If they want to answer, yes,
It would be just me.
but
more
go
of-
through the chair, please.
Right, through the chair. It would be more of an opinion of, my opinions on whether they would like to see that covered or not covered, type of thing. Because we've talked about both ways, and I understand that you might not want to see the cover on the roof, covered on from the building. Then again, I also understand that it might protect
I
from
think-
other things.
Does that make
Yeah,
any
I mean,
difference to you?
My biggest thing is I think sometimes those covers are uglier.
I understand that,
You
but
know,
that's why
like
I'm
the
asking.
Quonset height up
I was
and down.
asking more the folks who have to live there and look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
it
that's
and
fine.
that kind of thing, so.
Don't worry.
That was.
Again, this is gonna be below ground, right?
Yes.
So, you know, if it's only,
The 8-foot fence, you will not see.
I was just gonna say the 8 foot, you couldn't see it at all.
Well, I'm gonna be, if I'm in the property to the east of it, I'm gonna be standing above the 8-foot fence line. So I can look down straight into it. That's why I'm just asking. It's more of a question.
Looking at it 70 feet away if they stay on their property.
I understand that, but it's more of a question. I was more for just to get an idea, because they're the ones living there, what they thought, and that was it. That was, you know.
I'll allow if somebody wants to speak. You
gotta
have to come to the mic, give your name and address.
It's all right, it's just being recorded, so don't worry. You can watch yourself on YouTube tomorrow.
Yeah, you can-
I'm Dale Erskine, and I live the property that we're talking about.
Okay.
A solid, the chain link isn't gonna work, 'cause it's gonna be looking at crap, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. So, a solid fence on that end, or something, so that we don't have to look into the supply.
Supplies, so-
Correct, well, no, so that's
Right.
part of the
That's where I'm
condition.
going with that.
I was
Right.
just thinking of whether you want that to be a roof over that fenced-in area or not. That was the question.
We sit in our back porch, we're elevated in our house, even higher than what is on that
Yes.
spot. So we sit in our back porch, we can see right over the hill in our porch, so we're gonna be seeing everything. So, like I said, we're gonna have.
Probably isn't gonna make much
But I have a
difference.
question about the lighting, too. The lighting, for security purposes, don't you need lighting on buildings, you know, at the
Yeah,
corners
yeah.
all night long? I mean,
They'll have lighting, but today, a lot of places, if you go by banks today, you see all the lighting and all down. We will put in there that it can
It's
not
pitch
be
black in our
clearly
back-
detrimental to
It's pitch black in
the
our backyard
neighbors.
right now, and it won't be. It won't be dark in our backyard anymore, though, right? I mean, we're gonna be seeing light.
No, you really shouldn't see much light
Really?
from that distance. I mean, now you're gonna know there's lights down there, yes, but will it be intrusive to your yard? It should not be at all.
Well,
We will actually put that in the condition,
No, but the lighting.
that
yeah,
the lighting,
important for
yeah,
us.
must all shine
To
down.
the other neighbors, yeah.
We actually, do you remember what that is, which one? On lighting, cannot be clearly detrimental to the use of adjacent neighboring properties, which is what we'll put in there.
So I guess, Mr. Chair, the question then would be is whether there's going to be outdoor lighting on from the property owners, or is the outdoor lighting only going to be from a tenant, maybe turning a light on to see
No, you would have to have outdoor lighting at the, you mean around the building?
around the building?
No, you would have to have lighting around the building. You can't, you know, but like I say, today you can have a lighting that is, we're gonna put that condition in.
Can we stipulate the condition would only be to the west side?
I don't think you want a condition where.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying, I
If there
don't,
is a safety issue, you know, you don't know what's gonna come along. And I mean, I might say, you know, the fire department says I'd like this side to be lit, because if we gotta go behind the building,
okay, all right, so,
I have one question. You said the berm was how high? 20 feet?
no, it's,
16?
16? The berm around the,
Yeah, so basically, the grade that Greg showed on the plan is the slab's gonna be 412 in the top of the hill, meaning original grade, not a berm that we're building, but just original grade is 426, so it's 13 and a half feet higher than the slab grade, the garage doors and, you know, where we're talking about the fenced-in area and whatever. Because this whole thing sits in a bowl, is essentially what it is.
okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, so you have a motion,
well, I have the motion, so I just, you know,
huh?
yeah, that was, I had the
Did
motion.
you, are you all through making it, or did you
Oh.
want to add anything else?
Well, you can make it, second it, and we'll condition it. Or however you want to do it.
I'll second the motion,
All right.
with
so-
conditions.
All right, so there's been a motion, and the conditions will be,
Number one, there'll be a sound barrier to the east of the property.
a buffer zone, I think we want, for sound.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Buffer zone to the north and east, I'm sorry. To a fenced-in yard.
Privacy fence.
Yeah,
An
privacy fence.
8-foot
8-foot privacy fence.
fencing around the storage area.
Storage area. No equipment repair external, outdoors, or in fenced-in area.
Correct.
No retail business and all businesses for employees only. And no hazardous materials.
Hazardous material, and the lights
And all,
not clearly detrimental to the residential properties.
yes.
No junk?
No junk, that's standard.
If you can say no outdoor storage except for the
Yeah.
fenced-in areas.
What about a sound decibel for the equipment?
What was that?
A sound decibel for the equipment? It's not too loud.
Can we just backtrack one thing? You mentioned no retail sales. I mean, the whole concept is if someone wants to come in and talk to the plumber and buy something, he should be able to sell it. That's the whole concept of it.
But I mean, if I'm gonna be calling a plumber, it's because they're coming to my house to give me an estimate for what I'm doing.
Okay.
So I'm not looking at it as him having a showroom or something like that, there, or selling me a heat system that he has sitting in the back of the yard, type of thing. So it's more, I'm just,
We're really not intending, just to be clear, retail, the use retail is allowed by right in the district. So we wouldn't have to, if we're proposing a retail establishment there, we wouldn't have to come and get this special permit.
Right.
okay.
So that's an allowed use, in the district, so I just wanted to point
But
that
you
out.
stated at the beginning that it was supposed to be, primary use was to store things.
Yep, that's not what we're intending, but I'm just saying, if you condition something that's an otherwise allowed use in the district that would not require a special permit, I'm just not sure how that would work.
Okay.
So, just keep that in mind.
I don't think we can do that.
Understand. Then the other one was the hours, no business between
no.
11 and 4.
Yeah. That was 11 PM to 4 AM.
Correct.
Even though Mr. Proctor said no major signage on the street, but individual signs for each potential leasee or leaseor, should we have that as a condition, or?
No, we'll make them abide by our sign. We have a sign
Okay.
bylaw, and they have to abide by the sign bylaw. We're not giving them any relief. Okay, so, got the privacy, we got the buffer zones, we got the lighting, we got the outside storage area, repairs. One more thing, that was brought up, the water truck. They say it was never there. We indeed have a water truck on the property.
So I don't want to be argumentative, but there was a water truck there, okay? We had problems with it. It didn't run every day. We also didn't work out of that pit every day. So, but again, there is a water truck. I have a workable water truck.
Right. I just think during the construction phase.
Oh, absolutely.
doing it,
Exactly.
it-
Yeah,
it
no,
is-
I agree 100%. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay, we have a motion, we have conditions. We missing any conditions? I don't think so. All right, and we have a motion, a second, I'll call for a vote. Jane?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
And I say aye. So it is granted.
You have to read
Yeah,
the
we're gonna go
conditions?
right into the next hearing.
Do you have to read the conditions?
Oh, yeah.
Can I take a bio?
Hold that, one second, Dan, I have to read conditions while you're still here. post. Okay, the special permit is granted with the contingency that the petitioner complies with all licenses, regulations, statutes, ordinances of any and all applicable local, state, federal boards or agencies with jurisdictions over the premises. The special permit is subject to a periodic review by the permit granting authority or the enforcement officer to ensure compliance with any conditions. Non-compliance to such conditions may result in revocation of this permit. A copy of the board's decision shall be filed with the town clerk within 14 days. Any party aggrieved by the board's decision may appeal to Superior Court 20 days after the decision is filed with the town clerk. After certification by the town clerk that 20 days have elapsed since the decision was filed, you should have it recorded in the Registry of Deeds. No special permit shall take effect until it has been recorded, and the special permit shall lapse within 2 years unless substantial use or construction has commenced. With that, good luck with that. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
We wish you guys luck.
Good luck.
And we know you're going to have other hearings, but please be cognizant of them.
We're going to need it. Thank
Yes.
you.
Have a good night. You too.
Yeah. Okay. Our next hearing, we'll go right into it. I see only the applicants are here now, so there's no public, so,
He's in a butter.
he's in a butter? Okay. All right. Were you here when I introduced the board and read the procedure?
No.
Okay. Then I will reread it.
Should have just said yes, no.
I'll tell you how the hearing is going to proceed. I have your notification that the hearing is being recorded in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access and Facebook. I'll introduce you to the members. To my left is Lisa Normandin, the board secretary. I'm Alfred Gravel. This is James Bezikowski, David Blatt, and missing is Tony Nicastro. The way the hearing will proceed is Lisa will read the application and any other submitted communications. The applicant will have the opportunity for comments on the application or submission of additional documents. You will please come forward to the mic and give your name and address, and board members will have the opportunity to ask questions they might have while you're at the mic. There will be a public comment period, so you please come forward to the mic, give your name and address all comments and questions to the board. And with that, I would ask Lisa to please read the petition.
This is an application for a special permit, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, Zoning Board of Appeals. The name and address of the applicant is Paul Block, 451 Townsend Harbor Road in Lunenburg. The undersigned makes application as follows. Special permit pursuant to the zoning bylaw, Section 7.4A1. An application for the same was dated 8/26/22, was submitted to the building inspector and was denied by the same for the reasons stated in the letter attached hereto. If a building or use permit was applied for, a copy shall be attached to each copy of this form. The proposed action has not begun. The basis for this application is found in the following section of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw, Section 7.4A1. The street address of the property is 451 Townsend Harbor Road, assessors map 29, parcel 8. Name and address of each holder of legal title to the land which is the subject of this case is Lois Block and Paul Block of 451 Townsend Harbor Road in Lunenburg. And the deed is recorded in the Worcester Northern District Registry of Deeds, Book 10343, page 145, and dated May 31st, 2022. It is signed August 29th by Paul J. and Lois L. Block. Existing conditions. The subject property is located at 451 Townsend Harbor Road, which is shown on Assessors Map 29 as Parcel 8. The property is located on the westerly side of Townsend Harbor Road and has .54 acres of land and 75 feet of frontage, making the lot a pre-existing non-conforming lot with respect to area and frontage. The lot contains an existing two-bedroom dwelling, The site is currently serviced by municipal water and has an on-site sewage disposal system. The entire property is located within the Residence A zoning district. The applicant is proposing to raise the existing structure and construct a new 3-bedroom dwelling on the property. The proposed structure has been placed such that it is in compliance with all dimensional zoning setbacks. The number of bedrooms as well as the overall footprint of the building is being increased. As such, the building commissioner has required us to file a special permit pursuant to section 250-7.4A1 of the zoning bylaw. See attached correspondence. Special permit criteria. A, will the proposed action be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons? The reply, the proposed use of the property is the same as the existing use, a single-family residence. As such, the proposed action will not be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous, as it will not add additional traffic and does not constitute a new danger of fire or explosion. B, will this action have a material adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood or on the amenities of the neighborhood? The reply, the improvements will increase the assessed value of the property and also the market value of the property. As such, we expect the proposed addition to have a positive effect on land values in the neighborhood. C, will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and sightliness if an open use? The proposed use will remain unchanged. The applicant has hired Damon McQuaid, AIA, to design the proposed house to ensure that the proposed addition fits in with the character of the neighborhood. Will the proposed action produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines and amounts clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property? As mentioned, the proposed use will continue to be a single-family residence. The structure is being proposed in compliance with all zoning requirements and will not produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare that would be detrimental to the adjacent property. There's a letter dated August 29th to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The purpose of this letter is to provide written authorization to allow staff from Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group Incorporated to represent our proposed project at 451 Townsend Harbor Road. Respectfully submitted, Paul and Lois Block. There is a list of abutters attached with a map of the proposed area and a list of abutters. The deed to the property. There's the field card from the assessor's office and the email to the building inspector. Good morning, Greg. The property in question, parcel 29-8, is in the Residence A zoning district. It has approximately 0.54 acres or 23,522 square feet of lot size and 75 feet of road frontage. Once the structure is demolished, all grandfathering rights afforded in Mass General Law 40A and in the town zoning bylaw for existing lots would no longer be applicable. In my opinion, voluntary demolition of existing structure and the rebuilding of a substantially larger structure on an undersized lot with inadequate frontage in regards to the zoning bylaw would be considered making the lot and structure more non-conforming, and section 257.4A1 of the zoning bylaw would apply. Sincerely, Casey Burlingame. There's a map of the, I don't think I need to read it.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
No.
okay. And attached to the associated maps and plans of the building.
Hey, invite the applicant to.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Greg Roy with Dillis and Roy, and I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Block this evening, as you read, for the property at 451 Townsend Harbor Road. So I'll just give you a brief overview, but again, most of it was said in Lisa's opening remarks. The property is a pre-existing non-conforming lot relative to area and frontage. As such, it was the building commissioner's judgment that demolishing the building would result in the loss of its pre-existing grandfathered status.
That is correct.
So we're here today to ask you for a special permit to reconstruct a new building on the site. So the general idea would be to demolish the existing two-bedroom structure that exists, and to build a new three-bedroom house on the lot. Both the existing and the proposed structures are actually compliant dimensionally with the lot line offsets, so we're not proposing any variances or any dimensional variations relative to setbacks. No building height variations. We're proposing to comply with all other aspects of the zoning, dimensional requirements of the zoning bylaw. Two other things have occurred to enable this. We filed, we did soil testing and performed, and prepared a new, modification to the existing septic system to increase the number of bedrooms from 2 to 3. That plan is pending with the Neshoba Board of Health. That application has been submitted. We're just waiting for their review and the permit issuance. We have also filed an order of conditions with the Conservation Commission. That has been granted. The order of conditions process has been closed and granted by the Conservation Commission. So I think I will leave it there and take any questions that you folks may have or any questions from the audience.
Okay. Thank you. First question is, what was the square footage of the existing house? And I'll let you know, I know that house well. It used to be my neighbor.
Okay.
I used to own the house next door.
So I think we provided the assessor's card. Let me see if I can get that information for you.
It was like 1,079.
Thank you.
The existing?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And unfortunately, I do not have the copy of those building plans in my I thought I printed them, but, so you may have better information than I have on the proposed house.
And the new one is?
They don't say in there.
That
was what I found. Just
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you
Hey,
know
Greg.
what the new?
Is this, were these the house plans? Yeah.
Ah, yes, they came under separate cover. That's why. So it doesn't show on the plan? I'm not going to have that for you then, unfortunately. Significantly bigger.
Baby grand piano, pretty impressed. Baby grand piano.
I'm not sure what the square footage is, but it's
Is it
significantly bigger. I would say,
that guesstimate?
well,
Twice as big?
yeah, I mean, it's nominally the dimensions of the house are 56 by, I mean, including the garage, which bumps out a ways. Well, let's not include that.
We
50,
have they have the dimension.
50, let's see, 56 by
56.
40 by 50.
That's big.
That's some bump outs that you got to take out of that, but,
Okay.
and it's a 2 stories in portions. There's several sections that you can see on the second floor plan that are either unfinished or cathedral, but there are 2 bedrooms and a loft area upstairs. So my understanding is if they had done an addition,
What's that?
my understanding is if they had done an addition to the property, they could have expanded that as of right.
Yeah, I take it all the new, because you said they've already been to the conservation, so I know the conservation, so I'm assuming everything is on the back side of the house towards the road then.
Yeah.
And the area where the house is now, plus the additional.
Yeah, the house actually shifted a little bit further away from the lake. The proposed house will be further away from the
A
lake
little
than the
further
existing
away.
house. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But in the general location.
And actually, that lot is probably bigger than most lots. Originally, it was a double lot. And then, of course, it combined under zoning at one point.
Right.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of small lots on the lake for sure.
okay. Any questions from the board?
Will this have a cellar?
No, it will not.
So this is going to be on a slab?
It's either a slab or a crawl space, but it will not have a cellar. The groundwater table is very high.
Oh, I know
It's
it
not there's not a huge gradient from the lake elevation to where the house pad sits, so it's not really suitable for a
Right.
full basement.
So what would you do, a slab or like a crawl space?
So, let me see, I don't know if they've made that decision yet. They were, I think the architect was back and forth between whether to do a slab or a crawl space, so I'm not sure I could tell you if that has been decided yet. But I think that the applicant would prefer to do a crawl space. It's just a matter of
If
making
it's
sure you're not
feasible.
flood, there's a flood zone there that exists, so, but I think the preference would be to do a crawl space.
Okay.
So at least you can get access to,
To plumbing
Yeah,
and
plumbing and
and all of that, yeah, I agree. Any questions from the board?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. So you just stated that groundwater is high in that area, right?
It's the elevation of the lake.
So how's that affect the septic system?
The septic system is up at the front of the property, and the grade up there is
Grade
actually
up.
higher. And the soil testing that we did documented where the groundwater table was, and we've documented our elevations that we are in compliance with Title V. So that's all being designed in compliance with Title V.
That's it. And, do they have to move the tank? Because I think
We are
the
moving-
tank was closer to the house than...
We are moving the tanks. You can see those two darker rectangles. I'll call it the front of the house, but on the road side of the house, I'll point.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's going back.
So we are going to replace the tanks, put new tanks in.
Okay. So you'll have the tank and a pump station.
Correct. Which is what it is today. It's a
Right,
pump system today.
right. I actually remember when they put it in.
Right, it wasn't too long ago. It's pretty
No, it wasn't that
relatively
long
new
ago.
system. Right.
Maybe-
We're actually able to just add
Probably
on.
15 years,
Yeah, I would, maybe even less.
16.
Yeah, you probably have a better memory on that.
I'm sure it was because it,
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions from the board?
The septic, the leach field the location, is that the same as the present leach field?
Yeah, we're actually just adding a trench. So we're actually going to keep the leaching field and add a third trench to it.
Okay,
can
so
fix
how,
that.
do we know, I mean, the age of the leach, I guess, the age of the leach field?
It's the same, it was all put in at the same time.
About the 15 years?
Yeah, and the leach field is higher. That's why they have to have a pump station.
No, I understand. I'm just looking at it as just adding a trench. We are adding a bedroom, which is adding the amount of occupancy as well as the square footage, which obviously is looking at more people in there, and the
Right. No,
concern
yeah,
was
absolutely
how
right.
old the field was and whether there might be a chance. I do see that there's a room for the reserve field, however,
Well, actually, we had to prove a reserve area to get the extra bedroom. Because when the repair system was built 15, 16 years ago, they didn't increase the flow at that time they just kept it at 2 bedrooms. When you
Right.
do that, you do not have to do a reserve area.
Right.
So we actually had to do additional soil testing to prove that we had area for a reserve as well. So it's
Okay.
now a fully compliant Title V system.
Okay. And what is the driveway today?
It's gravel. Gravel.
It is gravel? Is it in the same location as proposed?
Well, we're going to shift it as you get down towards the house, just to match where the garage is going to go.
Understand that, but it's,
But the entrance at the road will be the same.
So that's the shared driveway at
It
the
is.
entrance?
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll be pretty much the way it is now, shared at the beginning and then split
Correct,
to the two
yeah.
homes? Okay.
and I know one side of it there's some kind of forest, or there is woods on one side.
There is woods, kind of woods, up towards the road near the leach area.
Okay. So just looking at it as we're moving towards I don't see my north, sorry, I don't have my north-south.
Towards the dam?
Towards the dam, since the house is moving towards the dam, we are moving towards an existing neighbor, and I'm just wondering what kind of shield there is or anything from that
Yeah,
neighbor.
It's,
Which way, are you talking north or south?
Yeah, I'm going up. Let's go up.
Up. We are proposing some plantings there.
Okay.
So we do need to remove a tree there on that side, adjacent to where basically at the back line of the garage. There's a tree that will be removed there, and we're planting, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new trees along that property line there to kind of take the curse off. And to mitigate, frankly, we have to replant trees in the buffer zone per Conservation Commission regulations, so those are being planted. But we chose to plant them in a location that would provide a little bit of buffer.
Any other questions from the board? Anything else you'd like to add? With that, I'll accept the motion.
Well, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public?
Yes.
Come up, just give your name and address, say whatever you would like.
My name's Nicholas Eaton, new owner of 441. I just went through this whole process. I don't agree to any of this building. I asked for trees to get cut down, and I was denied by the league. They hit the house, totaled the house. Went through insurance, the building department, Casey and Lisa, it has to be on footprint. Couldn't be any bigger whatsoever, couldn't go up, couldn't go sideways. On footprint, kept it there. I had a brand new septic system, actually put in and designed by Dillis and Roy. It's like I don't know if you know, I know Jack put it in, it's like a 1,500 gallon pump chamber tank. My house it was technically a 3-bedroom before. On paper it was 2. They made me put a deed restriction just recently. Now this person wants to buy a house, nothing wrong with it, there's occupants, and make it this huge thing and add a bedroom. I'm just gonna let you guys know that Board of Health needs to approve that, because they just made me put a deed restriction and I was halfway through the build and it was a 3-bedroom.
Right, they would definitely have to get approval
Yeah,
from the board.
so I'm not trying to be that neighbor to try to be the thorn, but I don't want to see a neighbor go through what I went through. Because as Lisa could see, I went through the storm. And I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair that I have to have a deed restriction on my house when it's still a 2-bedroom.
What was your deed restriction?
It's a 2-bedroom. It's a 2-bedroom, and I had to put it for the septic system. That's sick. I mean, I'm no engineer, but I know a 1,500 gallon 2-chamber tank is well prepared for, I don't know, a 4 or 5 bedroom. It's at least a 3-bedroom. You know what I mean? A 2-bedroom, I mean, it's a 1,600 square foot house. I've been on the conservation meetings for the last, I don't know, year, and I've heard many of them say that a 2,400 square foot house is small. I got a 1,600 square foot, and I couldn't even go up or sideways. They made it it had to be on footprint. I followed everything, and now I got a neighbor right next to me that builds that big addition.
Who didn't allow you to go up?
Just anybody. We had to be on footprint. It couldn't be any bigger. We were rebuilding as is. And if you want to be technical, as is, we had the whole Matterport done. You could see the bedrooms.
Who designated had to be as is?
It was the building department. It was just a common. It can't get bigger because it was on a slab. It was so close to the water.
I understand that. I know they're going to make you stay in that, and a lot of this,
Which makes sense, honestly.
is the lot size. Like I
Yeah.
say, where he is, it's one of the bigger lots. It's a double
Yeah.
lot versus
I shouldn't have a deed restriction.
a what?
A deed restriction.
Yeah. See, I don't know who put that on you or why.
Well, the Board of Health made it happen at the
Okay,
tail end.
because
So
of
what
the
had happened
septic.
was I had bought the house. I bought the house with no deed restriction. I just get occupancy, now I have a deed restriction. So say if this guy goes through this whole process and he starts buying materials and they start building, and midway the Board of Health says you can't have a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, that's why I say they still have
But
to go.
it didn't
I
happen.
mean, what they're asking us is it's what they call a non-conforming house, a non-conforming lot. They meet all the setbacks, so what zoning is zoning. Zoning as far as setbacks, side yard, front yard, you know what I mean, height.
Yeah.
All the things that are in this book that apply to zoning. That's what he's here in front of us for. Now, as far as the other,
You can't just add bedrooms. You can't just add bedrooms. You
what?
can't just add bedrooms. I've been on the conservation, they've been shut down for just trying to, you can't just add a bedroom. You have to get the approval.
Well, that's why I say, they have to get other approvals. We're not approving the septic system. we're approving the zoning, if
But
we
it's
approve it.
as a 3-bedroom though. It's a 2-bedroom on paper right now. So now say
But
if I
again,
want-
see, the amount of, like, what you're talking about is the amount of bedrooms
Yeah.
does determine what system you need.
Yeah, but I'm
Okay,
saying
and
that my
again, that's a
system
Board of
is-
Health issue, it's not a zoning issue.
But my septic system is probably even more engineered than theirs, over-engineered, and I still have to. I'm saying it's almost like setting precedent. If I can only have a 2-bedroom and I have to stay on the same footprint, there was nothing, my house got totaled in a tree storm.
Right.
I was denied to cut the trees down, and those same trees fell down in a storm. Now this guy comes in, buys a piece of property, and he wants to build up. I mean, if I could have done the same thing, I wouldn't be here. If I didn't have a deed restriction, I definitely wouldn't be here. But think about it. Say if you buy a car, you go to Ron Bouchard's, you buy a car, it's got a clean title. You go to register it, it's got a rebuilt title. That's what they just did to me. Putting a deed restriction just took
see, I'm
value
not-
away. I'm just letting you guys know this is on TV and it's on recording.
Okay.
It's not fair.
Yeah. No, like I say, this is a zoning.
Yeah.
So what's in our
No, I understand.
God is
I'm not
zoning.
saying that you guys are doing anything wrong.
No,
bringing it to you.
I'm just trying to explain it to you that, he does indeed, if there are restrictions by what they're putting in for a septic system, that says that's only for a two-bedroom house, and that's how they do go by the systems.
Yeah.
Is by number of bedrooms. If they say that to him, then he can't put in, we're giving him, or not yet, but we're saying, as far as zoning goes, you can do this. That doesn't mean that the Board of Health has to give him a 3-bedroom house.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that the building inspector or a planning board, whoever else has to hear something. Conservation, they say they've already been to. But any other, one of the things that I will read at the end of this is if it's special permit is granted, it'll have the contingency that the petitioner complies with all other licenses, regulations, statutes, ordinances, and on all applicable local, state, and federal boards or agencies with the jurisdiction over the premises. And then there's another list I read at the end. But again, we're not saying, oh, you can have a 3-bedroom house. We're saying, okay, you meet zoning, what you're proposing on that particular site. You don't need any setbacks, you don't need a height. So as far as zoning goes, that's what we're looking at. Now, the other issues, like I say, are other issues for other boards, is basically what I'm saying. I don't understand myself why they restricted you.
I just don't
And if you
understand
say
how I
it's-
couldn't build, I'm not trying to interrupt, I don't know how they can go off footprint. You can build up, you know what I mean? That's what I said, why can't I go upwards? But why are you gonna move? It should be on the same slab like they told me, I mean, they
Is
were.
there any reason?
I think because, and I could be wrong, but because your home was destroyed by, the tree. So if you wanted to do what these individuals are doing, you would have been here. If
Yeah.
you tore the house down
Oh, yeah.
completely, but you use the existing footprint, and that's why you didn't have to come before us.
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean-
only thing that just, I don't understand why I had to stay on footprint and then they can go off of footprint.
Because
can
you
go
have
up all
2
you want.
years to replace if it was disaster, fire, or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
same footprint. If you wanted to take that foundation out and build yourself what they're building, you could have done that, but come here first.
And as far as the water tables go, I don't think that anybody really knows what the water table is because it's pretty high.
Yeah, I know that. But, okay, again, I just wanted to understand what's in front of
No,
us.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll just say for the edification of the board, well, first of all, Nick, I'm in a little bit of an awkward situation because we're representing you. That doesn't happen to me all the time. No, I understand. But just to speak to the merits of this case and this septic system, the only reason we will be able to go up in bedrooms is because we can fit a fully compliant septic system on the lot that complies 100% with Title V and with local Board of Health regulations with no variances. That means offset to the lake, offset to groundwater, size of the system, having to be able to fit a reserve area in, and that just so happens we can fit that on this lot, and that's the only reason why we'll be able to do the 3 bedrooms on this. If we couldn't do that, we'd be in the same situation with a deed restriction that
It's
Mr.
that
Reed
easy.
was.
Correct.
Yeah. But we definitely do need to get a permit, and that is still pending with the Board of Health. And we understand that that is completely out of your purview, and it's a completely separate process, and we need both. So we understand that. So if that helps, I just wanted to give you that commentary.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or discussion from the board?
I don't have any questions.
Knowing that what we're here is for the zoning side, I mean, I think it's pretty cut and dry, Mr. Chair.
All right. With that, I'll ask for a motion.
I make a motion. I make a motion.
Yeah. You have to say what the motion is.
Oh, I make a motion to accept the proposal.
Grant,
To grant.
to grant the,
Special permit
Special permit.
to construct a new 3-bedroom home.
To
As
construct a new, sorry,
you could say that.
constructed a new 3-bedroom home, sorry.
as per,
Yeah, we don't,
As
we're not
per-
even gonna say bedroom, we're just gonna say we're approving it.
As per section 7.4A1.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll give a second.
All in favor?
aye.
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 And aye. Okay, and with that, I will read you the post-decision. Special permit is granted with the contingency that the petitioner complies with all licenses, regulations, statutes, ordinances of any and all applicable local, state, and federal boards or agencies with jurisdictions over the premises. The special permit is subject to periodic review by the permit granting authority or the enforcement officer to ensure compliance with any conditions. Non-compliance of such conditions may result in revocation of this permit. A copy of the board's decision shall be filed with the town clerk within 14 days. Any party aggrieved by the board's decision may appeal to Superior Court 20 days after the decision is filed with the town clerk. After certification by the town clerk that 20 days have elapsed since the decision was filed, you should have it recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and no special permit shall take effect until it has been recorded, and a special permit shall elapse within 2 years unless substantial use of construction has commenced. With that, we're done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you so late.
No, that's fine. Motion to adjourn?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.